Welcome to the Independence Center's podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Radcliffe, here today to talk about important topics of our community, one being emergency preparedness and inclusive emergency preparedness, as well as community advocacy. Today I'm joined by two wonderful individuals. One individual is Sadie Martinez, and the other individual that I'm joined with is Sierra Cortez, two individuals that I had the experience of co-working with at the Independence Center. How are you guys doing today?
Good, Daniel. How are you?
Doing really well.
Good.
Doing really well. So I guess we'll just jump right into things. How about that? So I want to start with you, Sadie. Your role, what is your current role in our community?
So my current role in the community is actually at a state level now. I'm at the Division of Homeland Security Emergency Management. I'm now the Access and Functional Needs Coordinator.
Okay, so what you said to me just now, I'm kind of like blown away. What does that mean? What is somebody with that position? What do they do?
So what my role is to start helping local levels in all of Colorado start having inclusive emergency management cycles. So there's a cycle that emergency management works with. They do planning, preparedness, response, recovery, mitigation, and then they keep going in that cycle as events happen, such as a fire, a wildfire, or flooding.
Okay, awesome. So with that being said, just to break it down for me, you have to really break things down for me. Emergency preparedness, but like I thought that everybody was prepared for emergencies. What does that look like? What is emergency preparedness?
I love that question because I actually think in my philosophy that when we are prepared together, we could respond together, recover together, and mitigate together. And we become a resilient community. So in preparedness, what you're looking at is in the event that I have to evacuate my home, what do I need to take with me for 3 to 7 days? And then if I need a shelter in place, stay inside my home for whatever disaster or emergency, what do I need to keep inside my home and have enough supply of during that time?
Okay.
And it looks different for everybody. We can't just do one little checklist for one person because in what we see is that there's people with access and functional needs that have a different list that needs to be looked at because we have different abilities to gain access to different things in our community, different services, different communication, maintaining our health, our independence, our safety services and supports and self-determination, and our transportation. I use that in an acronym called CMIST.
And with that, could you break down CMIST for me?
Yes, CMIST, the C is for communication, M is for maintaining health, I is for independence, S is for safety, services, supports, and self-determination, and T is transportation.
Okay, and with that being said, what I'm hearing you say is that an emergency plan is individualized. It's very much so individualized in order for everyone to be prepared. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And we have to look at it in two different ways. We need to look at it as an individual and our community as being a community member. And we also need to look at it in a systems base, such as the emergency management in our communities and how they're planning. And when we're not planning together, we create this us versus them environment. Okay. And then because we're thinking somebody didn't do something for me, and it goes in both ways. It goes both ways, pointing the finger both ways. But when we plan together with people with access and functional needs, people with disabilities, then the systems start learning what they don't know because they don't have a disability.
Understand.
Or an access and functional need.
I understand. That is awesome. So let me throw something at you really quick. If my emergency plan is if there's a fire, I'm gonna go hide in my basement with 5 gallons of water. Is that a good emergency plan?
that is absolutely not a good emergency plan.
Okay. All right. So what is a good emergency plan? What does that look like?
So a good emergency plan would be where you're preparing for any event or emergency that may affect you. So I'm working at a level of natural or of disasters and whole community emergencies.
Okay.
However, different people have different individual emergencies, such as a loss of job. That's going to create a whole different emergency kit that you want to be prepared for. And that's going way into the specific of you individually. I'll be doing a training on how to prepare for everything.
Okay.
And I'm a trained trainer in there, but there's a gentleman called Aaron Titus who has a book out there, How to Prepare for Everything, and he talks about it from a catastrophic emergency and then goes all the way down to like an individual. But a good emergency preparedness plan would be looking at what are the all hazards in my area? What are individual, maybe even active threats that could occur in my community, or where I work, where I visit, or where I live? And so an emergency kit would be preparing for those kind of events, and then deciding what it looks like to stay in and to get out. What kind of plan do I have for both of those? And that's where your sheltering in place is staying in and having supplies and resources inside your home to be able to survive for about 7 to 10 days. And then when you're having to evacuate, what that looks like on having all your resources and supplies to be able to maintain that CMIS, having your ability to have access to your communication, maintaining health, that CMIS model when you evacuate, and what needs to go with me to ensure that I always will maintain my independence. And I'm not saying that you're going to come back to the same normal. It's getting you prepared to be able to maybe have a new normal. But if you have a plan in place, you're able to get to that new normal quicker.
Okay. So it sounds like the key word in emergency preparedness is preparedness.
Right.
and to do it ahead of time to where you're not reacting,
Right.
you're just prepared and you're going through for your survival. And then you figure everything else out afterwards. That's what it sounds like. Just make sure you have enough to survive this catastrophic event.
Absolutely. You said it
Okay.
just right. I love it. We could actually make a description about that.
Awesome. All right. So great information about emergency preparedness. But I want to jump really quick to Sierra. Sierra is our community advocacy coordinator at the Independence Center. She's new aboard, and I think she's awesome and has a lot of great things she'll be bringing to the Independence Center. Would you like to do a little background on who you are and how
absolutely.
you come to the Independence Center?
Yeah, so I found my way to the Independence Center as I relocated from Texas to the Colorado Springs area. So I'm very lucky to have found this position here. And I told Sadie this morning, she said, "How'd you find your way?" And I said, it was just lucky. And I'm really happy to be where I am, and I'm really happy to have the team that I do. So I am the new community advocacy coordinator, and there's two of us. But my focuses are in housing and ADA, and then emergency preparedness as well. So to give you a bit of background from me, my education is a BA in social innovation and social entrepreneurship, which I could go on about for about 3 days, but
We got time.
right, yeah. So it's really just the ins and outs and the bones and breadth of nonprofit organization. So all those NPOs. So I'm really glad to have found an NPO that serves a mission for an amazing community that we are able to touch and reach and really help. So I really appreciate that mission. More of my background, other than my education, I have a background in higher ed development, and then also a really deep history with Girl Scouts of Central Texas and Girl Scouts of America. So when we talk about the context of EP, for me, it's really a whole community base, right? Not just the Independence Center's population that we serve in our catchment area, which I think is really valuable for me to have, not only on a professional level, but also on a personal level, right? Yes. So how can I affect change for our catchment area and our population, but also how can I affect change in my own life? So, right. Yeah.
That's amazing. And you went to Texas Lutheran?
Texas Lutheran University. Awesome. Go Dogs for anybody listening. Yeah.
Right. So you were saying as a community advocacy coordinator, you can help with housing. Does that mean you can get me a home? What does that look like?
Right. So what my focus in housing looks like as the community advocacy coordinator focused in that, I do, work for the advocacy department. So I can't get you a house, but I can point you towards the resources within the Independence Center that can help you do that. If you are one of our consumers, of course. So what my focus in housing looks like is really just systems change and information gathering, and if we need to take it to the state level through lobbying or however that is, it's a really wide approach to the issue of housing here in the catchment area. So
okay. Yeah. So when you're speaking on systems level, mm-hmm. So if I'm an individual that's having an issue, if we're having a tenant-landlord issue, I shouldn't bring that to you. Is that correct, or should I go to where should I go if I'm having tenant-landlord issues compared to if I'm having an issue with the FHA? Right.
So as much as it is important for me to know everything, and I say everything and not I need to know every single thing, but it's important for me to know a lot of the things that go on in issues in housing and how complex and dynamic that functions. I'm not actually the resource that helps you with that. So right. I can help in the fact that I can gather that information to help with the big picture, but there are other resources available for that. Yeah.
Correct. And then you also mentioned the emergency prep side mm-hmm. of the advocacy piece. How does that come into play, and does it differ, or is it similar to what Sadie does in her job and her role?
It's definitely similar, but Sadie works at a level that's, she works at the state level. So I work at a really community-based level and really just within our catchment area, which is Park, Teller, El Paso, Lincoln, Kit Carson, and Cheyenne counties. So that's our catchment area when I refer to that. So, as a community advocacy coordinator focus in that, it's really gathering all the information that I can and really seeing how I can support the community first and then bring that to where I need.
So I actually have, this is Sadie, I actually have some history on what the Independence Center has actually done to help see the change from the local level all the way up to the state level by looking at areas that they have focused on. My previous position was actually emergency management emergency preparedness coordinator over at the Independence Center. And what they noticed is in Waldo Canyon Fire that there was not inclusive sheltering, inclusive communication. Remember, we talked about that CMIST model. Yes. They noticed that there was a lack of planning together and responding together. And so by focusing on the local level, they were able to make a change to be able to encourage the state of Colorado Division of Homeland Security Emergency Management to put a position in place to start helping all of Colorado identify being able to make everything inclusive in emergencies and disasters. So your role is extremely important. Yes. Because you see it at a local level to start making change up to the state level. And that's actually how I'm in this position today, is because of the stuff that you're doing, Sierra, and the Independence Center is doing in the community.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Just to ask, so I have two great, wonderful advocates here with me today. I would like to ask both of you, and we can start with you, Sierra. What does advocacy mean in definition, and then what does advocacy mean to you personally?
Right. So, I mean, I don't have a textbook definition, but what that really means to me is that as an advocate, I see an issue, and I don't just see the issue through my eyes, but I see the issue through, the eyes of the community and the people who are experiencing that issue, whether I'm experiencing it or not, is not necessarily important, but just really having the empathy behind helping an individual, or empowering an individual rather, to find a solution, or start to find a solution to mend that issue. So
you're saying putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, being able to take yourself out of it, put yourself in the individual's position, gives you the opportunity to help them figure out the best path or plan of action.
Walking with them, I would say, walking with them and empowering them, and saying, yeah.
Nice. That's a great word.
Thank you.
That's a great word, empowering.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Sadie? What does advocacy mean to you?
So at a state level, I'm not necessarily the advocate. However, I need to listen to the advocate and finding out where there's some gaps.
Right.
And so what I'm doing is I'm actually bringing together emergency managers to understand even what inclusive whole community planning is, by understanding who are in our community, such as people with disabilities, and then people with access and functional needs. And so the local advocates are the ones that are actually bringing to the attention the gap of inclusiveness, or identifying areas that we could get better in. And so that's my role in advocacy now. Prior to, it was looking at what Sierra was looking at as in that area.
Awesome. And then, so let me ask, just to get everybody involved on this, let me ask, for individuals with disabilities, what needs do you see that are being missed, that individuals such as myself, as an individual that identifies with a disability, what do you see that can be done more on my part to become prepared? Where can I find this knowledge?
Mm-hmm.
Where can I find the places to help me plan for these emergencies? Because I have no idea how to plan for a zombie apocalypse. I just don't know. Where do I find this information?
Great question, Daniel. So the Independence Center actually has a strong emergency preparedness program there. They even have an emergency preparedness workbook that is specific to each individual's disability, to be able to identify, or at least start helping you see individually what you need. Because even though we may have a same disability, we have different abilities inside there.
Yes.
And so we may have a different checklist than somebody who still has the same kind of disability identified. And so that checklist helps at least start the foundation. So getting some emergency preparedness training, and starting individually. Then if you want to move up and become a community support, there's a program here in El Paso County called the CERT program, and they have it in other counties as well, but the one I know of here in El Paso County is called the CERT program, and it's a community emergency response team. Okay. And you go through a very inclusive training to help not only yourself, but also your community members in the training.
Okay. And then, so I'm hearing that if I'm having an individual issue, I should contact the Independence Center and speak to those community advocates such as Sierra, to kind of help me figure out what would my emergency plan be in time of crises, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? Right. And so we're going to wrap up here. And just to do some closing, in closing, I would like to say thank you guys for being here today. And if we needed to contact you all, how would we get in contact with you first, Sierra?
Mm-hmm.
And then how would we get in contact with you? And what is the proper way to get in contact with you?
Right. So I'm open to being contacted, however the individual wants to be. You can come to the IC, the Independence Center, and ask for me, or you can call me, or you can email me, and that information is available through the independent centers.
For our listeners, what's the best? What is your email and what's the phone number?
Yeah, so my email is scortez-ic.org. That is my email, and then my extension is 169, and it's just the Independent Center's phone number, which I don't know by heart, but
that phone number is 719-471-8181, and your extension again, Sierra?
169.
169. And they can just leave a message, and you'll try to get back to them.
Absolutely.
Okay, in about what, 48 hours?
As quickly as I possibly can. Yeah.
Awesome. And for you, Sadie?
So it's funny, I actually know that phone number pretty well. To get a contact with me, I could be reached by email or by phone, and my phone number is 720-610-1691, and then my email address is sadie.martinez@state.co.us, and that's spelled with S as in Sam, A as in apple, D as in dog, I as in igloo, E as in elephant, .Martinez, M as in monkey, A as in apple, R as in Roger, T, Tom, I, igloo, E, elephant, Z as in zebra. Just in case some people don't know how to spell those names, and sometimes when I say this is Sadie, they miss the S.
I understand. All right, so once again, thank you all for being a part of the Independent Center podcast. And I'm your host, Daniel Ratcliffe, signing off. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.